it's amazing to see the work that is being done in Knox, Warren, and Henderson counties. And people really care. And it's philanthropy at its finest.
Hi, and welcome to Illinois Corn TV. I'm your host, Lindsay Croke. I work here at Illinois Corn, and today I'm joined by DeAnne Bloomberg, who is the Vice President of Programs for the Galesburg Community Foundation, but previously spent an entire career also in the Farm Bureau system and with the Illinois Farm Bureau. DeAnne, welcome to our show today.
It is so good to see you and to catch back up.
Same.
I've thought of you often the last few weeks, but I know you're busy. That's all I can say.
It is busy here. I also agree. We've spent a lot of fun times working on behalf of farmers. I'm excited to dig in to some of those really great times. And so my first question is, you've really had a front row seat. You've watched agriculture evolve over your career. Like, are there moments or significant shifts in the agriculture industry that really stand out to you?
Yeah, it's, there's so much that happened in those 35 years. I hate saying that. And somebody said almost 4 decades. But I think everything for me is in about 7 to 10 year blocks. I would say maybe 5 to 7. But I clearly remember the 80s farm crisis, which was still kind of reeling from that, the early 90s. I think back to, if we take it back to corn growers, I think about being in Boone County and meeting with Jim Eichhorst because there was going to be the Boone County corn growers. Max Newport thought we should get something going, but then the ethanol rally in Pekin, and now look where we're at. How it's taken a long time, but yet it has grown, and that's what launches me into 2007 to 2012 and being in Rock Island County and having been in Henry County, residing in Henry County, and seeing the growth of the ethanol markets. Those are the days when you called to get daily grain bids at a county farm bureau, and to find the grain bids were not higher at the river. They were at, closer to where the ethanol plants were. So I think that stands out in my mind. I saw the interest in farming and the investment in farm ground. And then, of course, I go back to COVID. There were a lot of silver linings that did come out of COVID. I know people struggle with saying that, but at least for agriculture, I think that I'd watched the value add piece evolve since about the late 90s when corn got as low as $1.60. And someone listening to this is obviously going to take me to task. But I just think of the tremendous growth we've had and the interest of farming and agriculture. Look at the students, look at the support for FFA, the growth in FFA, in the urban FFA programs. I mean, a kid graduating from Iowa State in 1990, people are like, why are you going into ag?
Yeah.
So I could go on and on, Lindsay, but I'm not, because we don't have all that time.
Lots of changes. I agree. I think it's interesting that you bring up 2007. That is when I made the transition from Illinois Farm Bureau to Illinois Corn Growers Association. And I remember, I came in August of 2007, so literally right on the heels of the RFS2 passing. That was actually one of the first things I wrote. I ghost wrote an article about RFS2 that was published in Prairie Farmer. So that's always a fun memory for me, like a entry point of my own career. But yes, definitely a massive turning point for corn farmers in our country, but in Illinois specifically. I also really appreciate hearing some of the early things that you did in your county farm bureau that maybe even predate me. I didn't know you called to get the markets every day.
Oh.
What other memories do you have?
Oh my gosh. Honestly, if I had to say, people are familiar with WMT growing up in Iowa. My dream job would have been working at WMT, just because the Rich Ball Vance did the farm markets, and we all can relate with that. But every day, yeah, around 4:15. Of course, farm data, DTN, was out there, but that's really where it got started. That was the tipping point for about 9 farmers in Henry, Mercer, Rock Island that said, and Stark, that said, hey, we need to have satellite or computer markets daily. So every day, you know, it was kind of fun to act like I was a DeLoss or Rita.
I do remember that too. The pause in the board meeting, you'd have a break in the board meeting and the board members would congregate around the DTN machine. Yeah, I haven't thought about that in a long time, but definitely a blast from the past. It feels like a privilege to get to hold these pieces of our agricultural past and yet know that we're still missing so many things that came before. But
yeah, I think it's like I said to a lot of people, like the work that I chose to do and to work with volunteers and for an organization like Farm Bureau, I wouldn't have been able to do any of this if it weren't for all of those individuals who cared so passionately about an industry.
You've worn a lot of hats all these years at Farm Bureau, all these years in your career in its entirety, but where do you feel like you grew the most? Like where were you challenged? Where were you stretched? Where were those points that really changed your career?
I do believe I was stretched each piece along the way. If I start with Boone County and being there 6 weeks, and Mark Farrell is telling me that my worst fear had come true at age 23, 24, that the bookkeeper membership secretary in Boone County had quit or was going to quit. She was taking a job and we couldn't compete. I didn't know what it meant to run a small office, right?
Right.
So there was that. It was like, well, you got to buck up and take charge. There was no guidebook to go through. That was circa 1991.
Also, you couldn't just Google it, DeAnne.
No. No. Early mornings, late nights. There were so many different, I guess, timestamps. Henry County, the LMFA.
Oh, yeah.
1998.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the producer groups that were right there and that got involved, and we packed Southwest Elementary to keep that remaining. I go into Rock Island County and working with the news media and a lot more elementary schools in the ag in the classroom. Like all of a sudden I had 10 elementary schools that I had to remember where we were going to drop off incubators to, and that there were 2 Washington elementaries or Washington junior highs. So it was, there's just so many different things, but the one that grew me the most was the last 7 years as director of issue management at Illinois Farm Bureau. That clearly I was like, oh, I have my dream job. And that challenged me the most.
I think we've talked about this before, how do you organize yourself when you're thinking about managing every issue that Farm Bureau watches, keeps an eye on, and what's happening in every issue and what the media are saying about every issue. I mean, the scope of that is really probably much more significant than people think.
Yeah. I remember always wanting to log in a spreadsheet. And when you go work in the news comm, now marketing communications, those people don't work in Excel spreadsheets. They're working, right?
Yeah,
They're
we're
either
words.
working
We're in words.
They're in Words. They're in maybe Adobe PDF designing
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Whereas I needed to get to it, say who was the subject matter expert, and then just try and build those pieces. And Sierra Henry helped build what we had created when we started there with the talking points. But that's what I mean by there was so many issues, because we just kept evolving with either solutions or opposition.
You now are serving in a very new way for the Galesburg Community Foundation. Talk to us a little bit about what you're doing there, what was exciting about that job, and what people might be surprised to know.
Yeah, so I'm really fortunate that I was able to transition into this role as vice president of programs at Galesburg Community Foundation. There are people that probably remember Josh Gibb when he was Knox County Farm Bureau manager. He is our executive director. And then of Force, he just went off as president of the board, chairman of the Knox County Galesburg Community Foundation is David Erickson, but then Sarah Grant is vice president of development. So, and then 3 other coworkers, colleagues that we get to work with, that we get to watch the good that can happen when people see the philanthropic need and support a community. And it's amazing to see the work that is being done in Knox, Warren, and Henderson counties. And people really care. And it's philanthropy at its finest. It's incredibly rewarding for me. I mean, I'm still new, but I've been able to visit a lot of we work with 5 community funds, Alexis, Williamsfield, Roseville, Monmouth. Did I say Knoxville? I don't think
I
I
don't
said
think so.
Knoxville. And 5 of them. And it's just, and there are people that overlap there that are farm families that I've known for years. So that's even more gratifying to see the role that farmers are stepping up and giving back into their own community. So I'm getting that connection, but it's a wide variety of things. I attended one of the not-for-profits the other night to learn more about what they're doing. So I think my degree was public service and administration in ag, so I think that still fits.
Yeah.
And really helping take care of those needs at home.
I mean, I think it really just brings our interview full circle. I feel like you just handed it to me on a platter. I said, you're so positive. You see the good in people. I know your heart. I know your heart for service and for people. And like, I'm so glad to find you in this position and to know that you are still serving ag in those local communities. I mean,
Yeah,
and everyone in those local communities, honestly, but.
Yeah, I'm really fortunate and lucky, because I knew that I wasn't done, right? I
Yeah.
knew I couldn't just sit.
Not to be corny, why did the light bulb attend the Galesburg Community Foundation board meeting?
Because he knew those lights could get turned on.
Close. But I would take that. I will take that as an answer. Here's the answer I have. Because the light bulb heard that's where bright ideas get funded. You should put that on your website.
Okay. All of a sudden, I started to panic thinking, did I miss that on our website?
No, you did not miss it on your website.
Okay. All right.
DeAnne, this has been delightful. I love every opportunity to get to catch up with you. I'm glad you're doing well. We miss you. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you for doing this.